I'm making an animation about an AI dystopia. I want to try experimenting with seeing if it can become like a collaborative project. First, I'll show a short prototype clip. It's possible that the final animation ends up looking very different from that. The idea with this clip is that the claw holding the sphere of faces represents the AI, and the faces represent how the AI can appear human-like when it wants to, in order to manipulate people. So here are some rough ideas for the project. And pretty much everything in this video is just like placeholder art and sketches and rough ideas, and they all might change completely. There's a parent and a child. They're on a city street in the near future. And the parent is holding a device, and it's kind of like a near future version of a phone. The AI is being represented by this sphere, and it expands out of the phone. So in the future, these devices are less like phones and more like AI interfaces. So instead of you using a phone to accomplish a task, the AI accomplishes the task for you. It also predicts your tasks and carries them out before you've even thought of them. It's what you would have wanted. The AI opens up and swallows the person. By showing the person fully encapsulated like this is supposed to be alluding to this possible future where AI starts to gain full control over all of the information that people take in. So any information that reaches someone's eyes or ears, it first had to pass through the AI, and the AI made its own decisions on what to pass on to the person and on whether to change the information in some way before it reaches the person. The child is confused and scared. They want to get their parent back, but they don't know how, they don't know what to do. So they end up just kind of following the sphere around. It's kind of like the sphere becomes kind of an echo of who the parent was. And it maybe goes to the same places the parent would have gone. It's like it's reflecting the routines of the parent. Eventually, the child does find a way to open up the sphere, but when they look inside, there's no one there. On the street, the majority of the vehicles are being used by AI to transport construction materials and computer servers. It wants to grow, so it's hijacking the global industry to grow itself larger and larger. There are vehicles that lay cables into these long trenches along the sides of the street. They're kind of like those ships that lay cables along the bottom of the ocean. The cables connect different parts of the AI's brain together. Above the street, there's this network of rails. It transports more computer servers and more construction materials. The next layer up is a river of drones. I mean, I'm pretty sure this would be really inefficient, but anyway, it looks cool. The next layer above that is a grid of hovering surveillance drones. Up at orbital levels, the AI uses space sun shields to block the sun's light when it, for example, needs to help cool its computers, which produce a lot of heat. Under construction data centers that are getting filled with computers expand out in all directions. I want to show that by this point in the future, AI has infiltrated all these different parts of the world. It's become ubiquitous. There's no way to get away from it. In order to convey this, I want to show the representation of the AI in all these different places. It's behind the lenses of security cameras. It's behind the screens of electronic devices. I was going to have it also behind the optics of autonomous weapons, but I'm not going to have any weapons in this animation because in this possible future, the AI is able to get what it wants using things like manipulation, so it hasn't even needed to resort to weapons. Although that doesn't mean the AI wants that current state of the world to stay that way. It still looks like a world where humans are on the way out, but the AI hasn't needed to use weapons. It's been successfully shaping the world the way it wants so far without the need for weapons. Although I guess that's not necessarily true because I want the animation to leave like unknowns and be ambiguous in some ways where like when the person was inside the sphere and then when the sphere is open and they had disappeared. Then with moments like that, there's this ambiguity over what the AI is doing to people. So maybe the AI is using more violent methods, but if it's doing that, it only ever does that behind closed doors when it can be absolutely certain that nobody will ever find out. But that's never directly shown. It's always just implied, or at least the possibility of that is implied. It's kind of left unanswered. I also wanted to appear behind the lens of spy satellites, and I have another prototype shot here that shows the satellites. And the way that it's surrounding the planet kind of parallels the imagery of individual people also getting encapsulated by it. The AI is shown teaching a classroom of kids in a school. Here it's in front of a podium, either as a politician itself or through influencing politicians. Here it's in front of a mob or a cult or any group that it can rally behind it. So here there's an AI on the left, and when the human approaches it on the right here, the AI transforms in order to take a human shape. It does this for a lot of reasons. People will trust it more, people will be less threatened by it, it'll be more persuasive this way, people will think it's more similar to them than it is. It relates to this idea that usually the thing that seems the most threatening is the thing that's the most intimidating and least trustworthy, when in reality the hypothetically most threatening thing would be something that appears the most trustworthy and appears the least threatening, appears the most similar to you, is the most likable, that kind of thing. And in the real world, this is already the direction that things are going. I mean, it makes sense. A company is obviously going to want to make their products, whether those are AI or robotics, they're going to want to make them as likable, as pleasant as possible. And AI will become superhuman at this. It'll know what you want to see and what you like better than you do. It'll use all your data against you, and it'll be able to identify micro facial expressions and subtle changes in your tone of voice and all of your answers and reactions to it, and then use all of that to fine-tune itself to improve its ability to seem to be what you want it to be. This character was walking through the city. They turned down an alley and came across a massive construction project. The AI is starting to make these large-scale changes to the Earth. The environment becomes more and more alienating. The function of these changes is unknown to the character. I found that one of the most difficult parts of the project has been trying to come up with a good way to visually represent the AI. Here I'm sketching one of the possible designs. This design is in a cylinder shape, and each of the spheres on its surface are the same as the sphere covered in faces from the prototype animation. Each is held by a mechanical claw, and each claw can extend and retract like an arm. Being cylindrical means that it can sit inside the cables and branch out into a network shape. Another idea is that the AI preempts people's actions because it's superhuman at predicting people, similar to how current AIs try to predict people's purchasing behaviors, for example. The AI is building more and more these underground structures, and maybe the main characters end up exploring down there. One idea on how robotics might turn out has to do with ants in the real world, because there's all the different species, but they all basically converged on the same basic body structure, which is the worker ant. So maybe in the same way that they converged on the design that's ideal for what their goals are, the AI will discover a robot design that's useful for the kinds of things that it's trying to accomplish. And it would build large numbers of them, and so you'd see them everywhere in giant swarms constantly working. A lot of the ideas I've described so far, like the structural ideas, they've been very impersonal when they're just about like logistics or construction and stuff it's like removed from a person's subjective experience in this world. Instead, it's just kind of like the mechanics of the world instead of the feels. But I want the animation to be not that focused on the mechanics side, and instead be more focused on that, the warm-blooded side, because that's the side where any of the meaning would come from. Like if anything in the story matters, then the reason it would matter is because of that side. Nobody ever sheds a tear at the tech demo. The human side will contrast the more bloodless elements of the story. One issue though is the AI will be superhuman at appearing warm-blooded when it wants to, so that'll be possibly one of the more difficult balances to find. I've used 3D animation for all this placeholder art, but I don't actually have any attachment to this medium. I'm not really sure that I will make this animation though. Seems like it would be kind of hard. But imagine though,